This is going out to all the Oblates of St. Abbey in Coleman, Alabama. And in our current days of uncertainty, I wanted to talk about our Benedictine vows and promises that we make as both monks and oblates. What I mean by vows and promises are the ones we make, obviously. They are obedience, stability, and conversion of life. And for monks, they're vows. We make those at both our first profession and final profession, the latter being for life. For the oblates, they are promises, and oblates make these promises insofar as their state of life permits, as y'all know. So I thought I would talk today about each vow and promise today. And I'm sorry we can't come together as a community due to the health risks that are in our day. But, so thank you for joining me on this broadcast. So, the three vows and the three promises. Number one, obedience. This is the vow that most monks say is the hardest one to make. Giving up one's will to another is indeed hard. Trusting another's judgment before our own is indeed hard as well. So in a world where one's will is often always placed before another's, monastic obedience seems absurd. It just goes against the grain in our society these days. And I thought we would look at Jesus' obedience to the Father, because Jesus is the supreme example of obedience. So in John 3:16, he states that God so loved the world. It is the will of God that man be saved. Jesus' will is to save us. It is so that he is willing to come down to our level even. That was made clear by my spiritual director, and I think that's very important to know that Jesus comes down to our level. He takes on flesh and becomes one of us. God and man. And because of that obedience, we are saved. The role of Savior is filled. And by his passion, death, and resurrection, we are saved. That is what he came to do in obedience to the Father. In obedience. It is comforting to know also that we have both God and man seated at the right hand of the Father. We have someone who identifies with us in all our struggles. This came by both obedience and love. So Jesus is the supreme example of obedience. One might even say that the salvation story is one of obedience. Mary is willing to bear God in her womb. She is not forced. She surrenders to the will of God. The obedient hearts of Jesus and Mary shows what our vow and promise should look like. It is important to know that we are not above this. We receive no dispensation if we decide to be a follower and disciple of Jesus. We, like Jesus and Mary, must surrender to the will of the Father in all things. Some of these things will be quite difficult. Next, our second vow and promise, stability. One might see a relationship between the three vows. One can't exist without the other. Stability grounds us not just to a geographical place, but grounds us in heart. True, my vow as a monk grounds me to St. Bernard Abbey in Coleman, Alabama, just as an oblate's promise grounds them to loyalty to our abbey. But it is important to have our hearts grounded. St. Benedict warns us of Sarabaite and Gyrovag monks who are indeed not stable either geographically or in heart. Their will is what they like to do, says St. Benedict. This is simply not the Benedictine way. We are stable in heart, and that means fidelity in spirit to God and to one another. It is a heart transformation. When I was Protestant, they said that it was a heart transplant. But I think it's better actually to say it is a heart transformation. Jesus does not just want our obedience, and to follow his rules, he wants our heart. We also show our stability in our prayer life, in our recitation of the divine office and fidelity to Lectio Divina. And this is a great witness to our world. It really is. Number 3, conversion of life. The Latin conversio and conversatio mean 2 different things. St. Benedict uses the latter in his rule, conversatio. This indicates a continual conversion. Day by day, we convert more to the will of God and life of God. This is summed up beautifully in the first psalm we recite each day, Psalm 94, Psalm 95, depending on which Bible version you're using. Oh, that today you would listen to his voice, harden not your hearts. God is going to speak at some point in the day. It is our job to listen. This can happen not just through the scriptures or our prayers, but also through quite unthinkable ways and through unthinkable people. And I often wonder whoever thought Zacchaeus the tax collector would be an example of repentance to others. I certainly would have not if I lived in Jesus' day. But it happened. Jesus simply called. And he calls each day to further convert our lives. We are never done with this on earth. This is continual. It is also a great witness to our world. So how do we live our vows and promises in our world? We live them, we don't just talk about them, we live them. The witness of our lives is the best we can give God and man. But let us remember that God always calls us to more. In that I, at least, take comfort and a challenge. And I hope that this reflection on our vows and promises helped. Let's stay safe, healthy, and holy. Can't wait for us to get back together. And God bless.